I don't fight for myself. I fight for my team.
Hey guys, that's my my voice is a little bit loud, right? I'm sorry. Hi guys, happy Christmas and happy New Year for you guys. Hi. Wait, the music is a little bit loud, right? Sorry. This and then this. Yeah, let's do a live recap first. Yeah, so oh, live recap. Okay, so on Christmas Day I didn't do anything because I didn't celebrate that holiday, but happy Christmas to you guys. Oh my god. And then my friend came here. If you guys see my last stream, his name is Akmal. And then we spent New Year's together. We're going to the club, you know, partying. Partying things. And then we went to basically beaches and some hills, ke bukit, kita ke Bedugul, and then yeah, we spent mostly together from 25th December to 5th January. And then, oh yeah, so pas kita ke Wonderland Beach, right? Kita we went down in order to go to the beach, but then the pathway the pathway to go to the beach is a little bit slippery, you know, and it was very very far away. Itu bener-bener jauh dari atas tempat parkir sampai ke bawah gitu. And then once we go down, it's like the pathway is very very slippery. Jalan itu benar-benar licin karena mungkin habis hujan gitu ya, jadi banyak lumpur, lumut gitu di perjalanan. I feel like in the middle, in the middle, when we're like between di atas sama di bawah, kita udah ngerasa capek banget. But you know what? We want to go to this beach. I mean, first kita bakal ke Kenyang Beach ada di Bali, but then it was closed due to I think it's like perbaikan jalan maybe, jadi kayak banyak batu-batu di perjalanan, jadi kayak motor nggak bisa turun. Sorry, my dad called me. Ya, yeah, so banyak puing-puing gitu, jadi kita nggak bisa turun. Sorry. Ya, yeah, so banyak puing-puing di jalannya itu, jadi kita nggak bisa ke bawah. So we decided to go to Wonderland Beach. Ya, selama perjalanan itu sangat licin banget. My friend wore shoes for some reason. Ya, dia pakai sepatu di perjalanan ke pantai yang dimana tempatnya licin banget. And I decided to wear sandals. Dan itu stupid banget, soalnya I knew that sandal tuh bener-bener nggak bisa di permukaan licin gitu loh. And then we go down there. It was very 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 hard and slippery and many things. And there's one moment that I fell down because it was so slippery. Gua jatuh. I mean, sorry. You guys hear that? Heard that? I'm sorry. That was my WhatsApp notification. Jadi kayak bener-bener slippery banget. Terus jatuh. And it was collateral damage. Sepertinya itu karma. Kenapa kau? Terus akhirnya jatuh kita berdua, and my bag was dirty. My bag got mud on it. Sepatunya dia kotor, ya nggak? Nih, mod gua namanya Akmal. Sama dia gua ke sana. Ya, kita berdua ke sana. But I think it was worth it. Worth it nggak, Mal? Kita ke sana, ke Pantai Wonderland. Karena turunnya capek, naiknya juga bener-bener very very exhausted. Yes, exhausted. Oh, yang itu iya. Itu kayak bener-bener kehabisan udara gara-gara kita naik itu bener-bener capek banget. Dan untungnya kita milih pathway. Oh ya, dan sebelum kita ke bawah itu ada 2 cabang kan, antara kiri sama kanan buat ke pantainya itu. And we decided to go to the right. Dan ternyata right itu jalannya itu sangat-sangat bebatuan dan licin dan lumpur di mana-mana. Terus ternyata pas kita pulang itu kita lewat sebelah kiri, dan ternyata sebelah kiri itu jalannya lebih gak licin, agak sedikit curam tapi nggak licin. We could have we could have went to that way, jadi kita bakal mungkin nggak jatuh or something else like that. And then pas kita nyampe itu bener-bener workout banget sih, bener-bener capek banget, basah baju di mana-mana. Biasanya kaki pada sakit, yes, kaki kita berdua sakit semua. Bener-bener paha, betis, lutut, semuanya. Capek banget. Aduh. Soalnya directionnya arahnya kanan, ya, right? Mana boleh ngikutin yang kiri. I know, but it was worth it. Coba Nyang-Nyang aja masih bisa ada. We should go to Nyang-Nyang. And then we went to Bedugul. Kita ke Bedugul, itu kayak tempat di atas gitu, kayak bukit gitu, tapi dia dan wilayahnya tuh dingin. Kita ke sana, kita udah bawa siapin makan, bawa kayak cemilan snacks and many things like that. Dan ternyata untuk motor itu nggak bisa masuk gitu loh. Baru tahu ternyata motor nggak bisa masuk. Dan kita perjalanan sebenarnya I really there's many views that you can sit on, right? That you can go camp. And the one thing I really want to go is the lake view. Tapi karena tempatnya terlalu jauh ya kita decided to back aja, nyari tempat yang lebih aman, tempat yang lebih agak deketan gitu, karena tempatnya juga udah mau tutup. Kita datang jam 4 dan lake view tuh jauh banget bisa dibilang. Terus kita datang jam 4. Terus and then I'm sorry. Terus so yeah. Ceritanya bule yang nggak kedinginan. Oh ya, so kita di sana tempatnya dingin banget, sumpah. Bedugul itu dingin banget. I wore this hoodie sama celana pendek, dan temen gua malah dia pakai kemeja, celana panjang, sepatu, and many things like that. I wore this itu pakai hoodie aja bener-bener kedinginan, but then kita berpapasan sama bule yang literally shirtless, celana pendek dan pakai sepatu, jalan biasa aja sama teman-temannya yang literally cuman pakai kayak tank top gitu, baju kepotong gitu. Mereka bertiga jalan biasa aja, ngerasa nggak kayak kedinginan. Bahkan bulenya temannya dia tuh nawarin temennya buat ngerokok. Like what the fuck are you thinking, huh? Why you guys can be like that? Kayak it's literally -4, I think, 2, I don't know, dingin kali. It's hard, bro. And then we spend New Year's Eve on club called La Favela. Ya, kita ke La Favela. But then antriannya panjang banget. So we decided to, take a little bit snacks. Kita makan hot dog and sausage. Terus kita duduk bentar, kita sambil nunggu. Itu kita datang jam 10. Kita datang jam 10. Tapi antreannya itu masih panjang, jadi kita decided to, to makan little bit karena kita bakal minum alkohol. Jadi kita perlu makan little bit. Terus biasanya harga tiket masuk buat Lava Vela itu 150. But then they decided to double it up. Jadi harganya tuh 300. Like what the fuck? Dan untungnya gua narik uang 300 pas, like bayangin nggak cukup uangnya. Jadi I mean I can use my debit card but I don't want to. Yeah, I think it was worth it karena lagunya pada akhir-akhirnya, awal-awalnya tuh lagu-lagunya tuh nggak terlalu bagus gitu, but then ternyata lagunya bagus. So yeah, it was fun. Banyak lagu-lagu yang bagus pas. I don't know why setiap ke Lava Vela first kayak my friends and I decided to what is it called again? We decided to win, right? We went back home, but then kayak benar-benar di depan exit doornya gitu, lagunya tuh bener-bener bagus banget. Literally. And we decided to dance a little bit, you know. But then, and the second time, my friends and I went there again. Pas kita udah mau pulang, lagunya bagus-bagus banget. Like, what the fuck is this, Lava Vela? And also, Akmal and I, kita berdua kita ke klub kan. Awal-awalnya tuh lagunya jelek-jelek. Kita dance, I drink, he doesn't. Yeah, I mean he didn't. I don't know why. Terus pas kita udah mau pulang, literally pas kita udah mau pulang, lagunya bagus-bagus. Like what the fuck? I think they have against something to me, basically. Yeah, so that's all the recap for my I don't my birthday, my Christmas and New Year's Eve. Yeah, so it was pretty fun. I spent my holiday with my friends, and yeah. Okay, what we're doing again? Oh yeah, we're gonna watch a true life crime scene. Let me see first. Yeah, because my favorite streamer Valkyrie win this, so why not? And got a new friend from Singapore. I mean, not me. You got a new friend from Singapore. I mean, does it count as friend though? Dia cuman nanya where you come from, and then my friend Akmal here said is from Indonesia, and that's it. And he said he's from Singapore, and that's it. Does it count as friend? And what else? Let me think about it. I don't think we saya menganggapnya itu sebagai teman loh. I'm sorry. There's someone show off their fucking motorcycle. Gue nggak bisa ngomong bahasa Inggris loh. Kami temanan secara batin. Oh enggak, deh. Enggak, UP Candy. Yeah. That's good. I think that's all. The recap of my holiday. pretty much I spent my whole day with my friends. We went there, we go there, we eat at some place, went to the beach, we went to Bedugul, see a lot of rabbits, and it was cold. Yeah, oh my god, it was pretty fun. Yeah, we're gonna watch true crime scene. Hold on. Oh, bam, there. We're gonna watch this. Which one should we watch? Me. Hold on. I'm so sorry. Let's watch this. Oh. I got my breakfast ready. I got my bread. I got my coffee. I got my last night hot dog. So I'm ready.
Prepare yourself for the tale of a cold-blooded killer that absolutely no one suspected. And when you find out all of the details for their unspeakable crimes, you might never look at a farm the same way again. Susan Monica was born Stephen Buchanan in California on July 8, 1948. She served in the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam War, and after being honorably discharged, she entered the world of engineering. Susan thrived in this field, and by 1991, she had saved enough money to buy a 20-acre parcel of farmland in rural Weimar, Oregon. From there, she wasted no time and immediately got to work building her own house, raising chickens and pigs. After years of working alone, Susan placed an ad on Craigslist in 2013, looking for some extra help on the farm. That's when 56-year-old Robert Haney entered the picture. He was a jack of all trades and agreed to work as a handyman, laborer, and carpenter in exchange for cash payments and a place to stay on the property. However, when months passed without a word, his children decided he had gone a little too far off the grid for comfort. So, on New Year's Day 2014, his worried children drove out to the farm, but were promptly greeted by Susan, who insisted she hadn't seen him since he quit and left 4 months earlier. Furthermore, she asked if they could take care of his remaining belongings, including his trailer and dog, which seemed very odd to, well, everyone. Jesse said of being on the farm, "It made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up."
What?
Haney's kids sprang into action and filed a missing persons report with the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. However, they found it very difficult to track him down because his income was mainly cash, which meant he left no paper trail behind. Additionally, they discovered that no one had heard from him in months. So naturally, detectives made their way over to Susan's property to inquire about Haney's disappearance, where they were met with a shocking scene. There were cars and different vehicles strewn about the property, with piles of debris all over and strange odors permeating the air. Susan explained to police that Robert had lived and worked on the property for roughly 6 months before he up and left in early fall. According to Susan, he received a disturbing phone call shortly before his departure from a relative, saying she had been the victim of assault. Susan told deputies that Haney was distraught over the news and began drinking profusely and behaving erratically before suddenly leaving the farm and all of his possessions behind. Susan's story seemed very suspicious to police, but obviously they couldn't go off just a hunch. However, their gut instincts would soon be validated when they tracked Haney's Oregon Trail electronic benefit transfer card. They were startled to find that his card had been used in December after Susan alleged he disappeared at a Walmart just 25 minutes from her property. Adding fuel to the fire, detectives watched the security camera footage and saw Susan clear as day using Haney's EBT card. Officers executed a search warrant on the farm, but it was no easy job as they had to sift through massive heaps of industrial waste, rotten food, and garbage. But the worst was yet to come. As they made their way through the filth, investigators saw something absolutely chilling sticking out from a catchment pond. It was a human leg.
What
It
the
appeared to have been cut mid-femur, down to the toes. Immediately, Susan was taken downtown for questioning, and she offered a bizarre story to detectives. She claimed to have stumbled upon a feeding frenzy in the pig pen last fall, and Haney was in the middle, so rather than call the police, Susan grabbed a gun and shot him to put him out of his misery before leaving his body there for a few more days. Then she put his remains in various garbage bags and left them in the barn, saying an animal must have found them and dragged the leg down to the pond. Susan told investigators that she didn't immediately tell them the truth because she was scared of what might happen to her pigs. So, it's not a pretty story, but it's certainly plausible. That is, until Susan kept talking. Now, here's where things really take a twisted turn, because when asked one last time what detectives might find on her property during the search, Susan finally caved and admitted they might find something else. She requested a pencil and paper to sketch a map of her property, and to the absolute horror of every investigator, she drew a large X right in the middle. Susan said, "Right there. That's where you're going to find Steve."
Huh?
Wait, what? Yes, Susan just outright confessed to concealing the body of another handyman named Stefan Delacino. She told them he had worked on her farm a year before Haney and blamed him for stealing 2 of her guns in the summer of 2012. According to Susan, when she confronted him about the theft, they started wrestling and one of the guns went off, shooting Delacino in the head. However, the blast didn't kill him, and he began chasing Susan to the barn where she raised a rifle and shot him once more in the head.
Damn.
So what
Susan has great aim at this point, dude.
did she do next, you ask? Morbidly, she fed his body to her pigs.
Wait. Pigs eat meat?
And then buried whatever was left behind where she had marked the X.
Oh my god, Susan.
As if this story couldn't get any more outlandish,
Jeez.
police asked Susan once again during the interview if there was anything else she forgot to mention. Her response sent a chill down their spines. She confessed to burying 17
What the-
more bodies on the farm.
Valorant. No.
As I'm sure you saw coming, Susan Monica was arrested on January 14th, 2014, and booked on 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of abuse of a corpse, and 1 count of identity theft. Over the next few weeks, investigators continued to comb through the mess at
17.
Susan's farm, and they dug around 100 holes until they located the remains of Haney and Delacino. Interestingly, they were unable to find any other bodies on her property. However, the lead investigator maintains that more people are out there, as they did locate a massive pile of shoes during the search.
Whoa.
Additionally, several witnesses testified to seeing her feed animals to her pigs, with many saying she even joked about feeding humans to them as well.
My god,
Pleading
Susan.
not guilty on all counts, Susan took many liberties representing herself during her trial, and even cross-examined the case's lead investigator, Eric Henderson. She would regularly interrupt the trial proceedings and was removed from the courtroom several times. The prosecution alleged that her sequence of events was incredibly skewed and claimed that the evidence pointed to Susan having intentionally shot both men before feeding them to her pigs.
What the
During
fuck?
the second week of the trial, an Oregon State Police anthropologist testified that Haney's legs were removed with an axe and that his thigh bones could have been gnawed on by animals. However, he couldn't state with certainty whether or not Haney was deceased before the dismemberment of his legs.
Oh my god,
But he did
Susan.
declare that Delacino had been shot 3 or 4 times in the head. Strangely, a cellmate of Susan's also testified that she had signed a birthday card in jail from the sweetest murderer in Jackson County.
Mm.
Her attorneys tried to say it was just a sick sense of humor. but the court thought otherwise. On the very last day of her trial, April 21st, 2015, and while Circuit Judge Tim Barnack addressed the jury prior to deliberations, Susan interrupted court one more time, raising her hand and saying, "I'd like to demonstrate how I shot him for 10 seconds.
Oh my God.
At first, she was simply ignored, but then she started lifting her hands in a crazed demonstration, and the judge ordered sheriff's deputies to take her away until the verdict was read. Finally, after deliberating for just 1 hour, a jury found Susan Monica guilty on all counts. She was thereby sentenced to a
As she
minimum of
should.
50 years at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, with no opportunity for parole. The families of Robert Haney and Stephen Delicino were at
Rest in
last given
peace,
the
bro.
closure they so desperately craved. I'll leave you with a quote from Judge Tim Barnack, who oversaw the trial. "You shot 2 people and fed them to your pigs. I don't know how else I can put it. You valued pigs more than you value people. It may sound harsh, but you are a cold-blooded killer.
She is.
I couldn't have said it better myself." Alexandria Allie Madison Costiel was born on September 11, 1997, in St. Louis, Missouri, to Cindy and Keith Costiel. In July 2019, Allie was gearing up for her senior year at the University of Mississippi, and she recruited her parents' help in setting up her new off-campus apartment. While the 21-year-old couldn't wait to graduate in the spring of 2020 with a marketing degree, she was also excited to be teaching yoga and Pilates classes throughout the year. So, Allie said a heartfelt goodbye to her parents after several days together. But what they didn't know was that it would be the last time they would ever see their beloved
God.
daughter alive again. In just 3 short days, the once bright and bubbly young woman would be found dead. At around 1:15 in the afternoon on Friday, July 19th, 2019, Allie wrapped up an exam for her Introduction to Retail summer school course. It's unclear what she did next, but we know for sure that at around midnight, she was caught on surveillance video footage leaving Funky's Pizza and Daiquiri Bar, located in the heart of the Oxford Square, wearing a blue dress and a white jacket. She could be seen walking across the street to wait at the corner outside the famous Rooster's Blues house. After several minutes of Allie standing outside, appearing to be on her phone, a gray Uber minivan pulls up, and she gets in. Her roommate, Lauren Riddick, reported seeing her friend back home at around midnight, but she couldn't verify when she left the apartment again. Some sources claim she was picked up on surveillance footage at a convenience store near Harmontown early Saturday morning with a mysterious man. In any case, a discovery later that morning would shake the college town right to its bones. Allie's body was discovered just before 10:30 at a campsite on Sardis Lake by a Lafayette County Sheriff's Department deputy patrolling the Buford Ridge area of Harmontown, approximately 30 miles from the university. The Lafayette County Sheriff's Department confirmed her shocking death on Sunday afternoon, and it was immediately labeled as a homicide. Well, it didn't take long for the name Brandon Thiesfield to emerge. Originally from Fort Worth, Brandon was a former Ole Miss student who had developed an on-again, off-again relationship with Allie a few years earlier. According to close
Your
friends, their
boyfriend.
relationship was complicated, to say the very least. And it only became more unstable when Allie sent Brandon images of an inconclusive home pregnancy test in April 2019. He responded
You see, this is why, if you guys want to have sex, use condom.
to her with a text saying a baby would ruin his life,
Hmm.
and his computer revealed countless
Man.
searches for abortion services and pills. Over the next
Man.
3 months, communication between the pair grew more strained as Allie repeatedly requested to meet up and discuss whether she was pregnant or not. Sadly, however, things took a turn for the worse on July 12, 2019, when Brandon reportedly sent Allie an ominous message telling her there was no need to meet. Unbeknownst to everyone, he had traveled back home to Texas and retrieved his father's .40 caliber Glock 22. 2 days later, he posted a photo of the pistol to social media with the caption, "Finally taking my baby back to Oxford." Oh, and that's that's not all. It turns out this guy was pretty busy on his computer the next few days as well. According to the state's evidence, he looked up tactical face masks, how to listen to police scanners,
What?
and even how serial killer Ted Bundy lured
Jeez.
victims. You know, totally normal stuff.
Yeah, normal.
Anyways, Brandon made his way back to Oxford on July 16th, 2019, and texted Allie the next day to let her know that he was finally ready to meet in person. Then, just after 9 that night, he messaged back asking her to let him know when she was home. Brandon picked Allie up from her apartment, and surveillance captured his truck headed towards Sardis Lake at around 1:15 in the morning. Approximately 1 hour later, a resident of South Sardis Lake reported hearing gunshots, and by 2:50 in the morning, GPS data showed Brandon's cell phone moving back towards Oxford. As word of Allie and Brandon's tumultuous relationship began to surface, law enforcement officers grew eager to speak with him.
Jesus.
However, after failing to appear at the station twice, the police had no choice but to bring him in the hard way. On the morning of July 22, 2019, Brandon was apprehended at a gas station in South Memphis with the murder weapon still in his truck. He was booked into the Lafayette County Detention Center that afternoon, ironically just as Allie's body was sent to the state crime lab in Pearl for an autopsy. Meanwhile, as the investigation into Brandon's Oxford apartment commenced, police uncovered a 2-page handwritten letter saying, "Dear Mom and Dad, I'm not a good person. It is not your fault. Something in me just doesn't work. I've always had terrible thoughts. I've always had these demons. I know I'm going to get caught."
Oh my
Pretty
god.
damning, if you ask me. Furthermore, ballistics tests verified that the shell casings and bullets found in and around Allie's body matched the gun found in Brandon's possession. He was officially charged with her murder on July 23, 2019. Brandon's father quickly hired attorneys who declared their client intended to enter a not guilty plea.
Not guilty. Fuck
As
that.
the trial got
Fuck his
underway,
father, bro.
an astonishing piece of evidence came to light that made this case even more senseless and painful for those who loved Allie. While it didn't come as a surprise to anyone that the autopsy report listed her cause of death as multiple gunshot wounds, it was a complete shock to learn that she was not, in fact, pregnant. During Allie's autopsy, the medical examiner found no evidence to support that she had been expecting at the time of the heinous crime. And although Brandon has never fully admitted his motive for killing Allie, many suspect it was due to the possible pregnancy.
Yeah.
And it was undeniably the thread holding this entire case together. So, therefore, it's devastatingly possible that Allie was murdered over something that wasn't even true. After it came out that Brandon was facing a capital murder charge, he publicly switched his plea to guilty of murder in the first degree. This change was very strategic, given it took the death penalty and a life in prison without the possibility of parole off the table. Consequently, Brandon Thiesfield was sentenced to life in jail and will be eligible for a conditional release when he turns 65. In her heartbreaking obituary, people were encouraged to honor the Ole Miss student by taking time to fully
Rest in
appreciate
peace,
the
Allie.
world's natural beauty, something Allie did every day of her short life. All right, now let's move on to the next case. And be careful not to jump to conclusions here, because sometimes the killer isn't who you first suspect. The date is Monday, June 17th, 2019, and 23-year-old Mackenzie Lueck has just returned to Salt Lake City after attending her grandmother's funeral in her hometown of El Segundo, California. Her flight landed at 1:35 in the morning. Shortly after, Mackenzie got into a lift outside the airport, and from there, she seemingly vanished into thin air. On Thursday, June 20th, 2019, Mackenzie's father contacted the Salt Lake City Police Department, frantically explaining that he hadn't heard from his daughter since Sunday night. Word spread fast, and by the next day, friends and family were handing out flyers with the missing girl's face on them all around Salt Lake City. A little background. Mackenzie Speth Lueck grew up in the Los Angeles suburb as the second of Diana and Gregory Lueck's 4 children, and the couple's only daughter. She was known for her
Damn.
infectious smile and outgoing personality. Seeking some independence, Mackenzie
Only
enrolled at the
child.
University of Utah, majoring in kinesiology and pre-nursing. So, Mackenzie had just disappeared after getting into a lift, and naturally, investigators wanted to speak with the driver right away. And just like everyone else, they had their suspicions. Nevertheless, police managed to track down the man behind the wheel, Michael Canada, who fully cooperated and admitted to dropping the young woman off at Hatch Park in North Salt Lake, just 20 minutes away from the university. He claimed it was a pretty typical ride, but as the two made small talk, he said Mackenzie mentioned how strange it was to be dropped off in the middle of a park so late at night. Still, she said a friend would be picking her up. Chillingly, he told investigators that he had even put Mackenzie's bag into the trunk of the Subaru that pulled up around 3 in the morning, but he didn't get close enough to see the driver. Michael Canada was officially cleared by police in relation to Mackenzie's disappearance. Although a setback in the investigation, this discovery meant that the person everyone immediately suspected wasn't actually the last person to see her alive. Police grew more desperate for answers, and on June 24, 2019, they made a public plea for any information regarding her whereabouts. They even released the last known footage of Mackenzie from the airport, but no clues came until they took a closer look at her phone. Mackenzie, like many other young women, was active on several dating platforms, including Tinder, Seeking Arrangement, and Call Her Daddy. As police dug deeper into her dating app history, the name Ayoola Ajayi stood out as someone Mackenzie had been chatting with on the night she vanished. In addition to a slew of incriminating images and messages from that night, cell phone data also placed them both in Hatch Park at 3 in the morning on June 17, 2019. Officers questioned him at his home, but with no hard evidence to go on, they had no choice but to leave empty-handed. 1 week after Mackenzie went missing, Ayoola voluntarily walked into the Salt Lake City Police Department to offer an alibi, explaining to police that he was with his baby mama and had never met Mackenzie in person. He appeared cooperative during his conversation with officers and said he came down because I knew I could help. That might have worked out just swell if it wasn't for the digital footprints he left behind, which resulted in a search warrant being issued 2 days later. On Wednesday, June 26, 2019, investigators searched his home, and what they found sent a ripple of fear through the community. After digging holes in the backyard where neighbors reported witnessing Ayoola burning something with a horrible smell, police could be seen leaving the residence with multiple bags and boxes of evidence. Testing would later confirm that some of the items included human remains and Mackenzie's personal belongings. They also searched for a mattress and box spring Ayoola had listed for free on the website Let Go just a few days earlier. As if this case couldn't get any creepier, contractor Brian Wolf was watching the news when he realized he knew the home being searched. He explained to police that the man living there had asked him to build a weird room 3 months earlier, but he declined after hearing the unsettling details of his request. Ayoola had asked the contractor to customize a hollowed-out area under the front porch into a secret soundproof room with large hooks anchored above head height.
Oh my god.
Into the concrete wall.
It's giving that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Jesus.
One day after the extensive search, a SWAT team arrested
Soundproof?
Ayoola at gunpoint. The 31-year-old tech support worker was booked into the Salt Lake County Jail for investigation of aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, desecration of a human body, and obstruction of justice. The investigation narrowed in on Logan Canyon, an isolated location nearly 100 miles north. Mackenzie's charred remains were recovered on July 3, 2019, in a shallow grave in the canyon. According to his lawyer, Ayoola had planned to murder Mackenzie before ever meeting her in person and had even switched off his home security cameras in advance. After picking her up at the park, Ayoola drove Mackenzie to his home, forcibly tied her hands behind her back, and strangled her with a belt until she stopped moving. However, an autopsy determined her cause of death to be from blunt force trauma to the left side of her head. Strangely, she was also found to be missing part of her scalp and had a 5-centimeter hole in her skull. Ayoola confessed to burning her remains the next day before burying her body and some belongings in his backyard. After police paid him a visit, he dug up the remains and took them to Logan Canyon. Ayula gave a brief apology to the Luick family in court, saying, I'm sorry for what I did, and I deserve what I get. Deserve what I'm going to get. I know this won't bring her back. The motive
My
behind
God.
Mackenzie's death remains unknown, but prosecutors alleged he simply wanted to know what it felt like to take someone's life. Either way, Ayula pleaded guilty to murdering Mackenzie and is now serving life in prison.
Life
Annette
in
St. Guillen was
prison.
born in Boston, Massachusetts on March 2nd, 1981, to Samundo Guillen and Maureen St. Hilaire. Sadly, her father passed away when she was just 9 years old, but Annette continued his legacy by pursuing a master's degree in criminal justice
Ooh.
at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City. The beautiful and bright student was on track to graduate in May 2006 and was even ranked in the top 5% of her class. But sadly, Amet's life would be cut short just months before.
Hold on, there's someone's coming. Okay, be right back. Wait, okay, chat. There's a little bit hectic in my house, okay? Hold on, hold on. God, I'm so sorry, guys. Whoa! Whew. Yeah. My God. I'm so sorry for you guys waiting this long. Okay. Oh God, my face. It was so very hectic in my house. First, my water doesn't work. I don't know why. I can shower for a day now, and I can wash the dishes. I can do anything. And now, uh, there's some worker trying to fix my brother's wardrobe. So yeah, I have to wait until my brothers came to my house, and then yeah, now I can stream. Hopefully, okay, continue.
that could happen. With her 25th birthday rapidly approaching, Amet took a trip to Florida with friends and family, returning to New York on Friday, February 24th, 2006. Amet decided to go out bar hopping in the Bowery area of New York City with her best friend, Claire Higgins. The girls were out until around 3:30 in the morning when Claire decided to call it a night. She begged her friend to catch a cab home with her, but Amet stubbornly insisted on staying out a little bit longer. The two had a heated discussion before Claire, realizing she couldn't force Amet to do anything, got into the cab and drove away. Concerned about her safety, Claire called roughly 30 minutes later to check in, and much to her relief, Amet said that she had moved to a different bar but would be heading home soon. Tragically, just 17 hours later, police received an anonymous phone call at around 8:30 on Saturday evening, informing them of a dead woman's body found on the side of a remote street in Brooklyn.
Oh my God.
When authorities arrived on the scene, they were met with something more gruesome than they could have ever imagined. An unidentified young woman was found naked and wrapped in a comforter with her hands and feet tied, her head bound with clear packing tape,
Oh my
and a
God.
sock shoved down her throat.
Jeez.
There was no identification on or near the body, and the presence of broken and bloodied fingernails indicated that she had desperately fought for her life. Investigators were immediately struck by the level of violence inflicted, and oddly, they also discovered that someone had intentionally hacked off portions of her hair.
Jeez.
An autopsy later revealed the unimaginable pain and torture she had endured in her final moments, concluding that she had been brutally beaten and assaulted before succumbing to asphyxiation. Additionally, they noticed strange red fibers attached to the adhesive tape, but there was still very little to go on at that point. The Special Victims Squad of the New York Police Department got right to work, seeking to identify the unknown woman or the anonymous male caller. After several hours with no contact, Amet's family began to grow worried. They filed a missing persons report with police the next day, Sunday, and Amet's sister, Alejandra, drove from Boston to New York to check out her Upper West Side apartment. While she was there, Alejandra got in touch with the police, who, after hearing of Amet's recent trip to Florida, requested she come down to the station. You see, the body in the morgue had very distinctive tan lines, and when Alejandra arrived, she was, unfortunately, able to positively identify the woman as her sister.
No.
Simultaneously, Claire had been out canvassing the city, looking for any sign of Amet and sharing her photo with anyone who would listen. Finally, she stopped at a bar called The Falls on Lafayette Street to ask if anybody there had seen her when Alejandra called to deliver the devastating news. Tears streaming down her face, Claire turned to the bar's manager, Danny Dorian, and said, "My friend was missing, but they found her body." The manager responded without any emotion, saying, "New York can be a tough town." Due to the incredibly violent nature of the crime, detectives suspected the motive was personal and began looking into Amet's love life. They contacted her ex-boyfriend, and for a brief period, police thought they had their guy, but he was ruled out due to an airtight alibi. Strangely, just 2 weeks before the attack on Emmett, a woman had been picked up in a cab and was violently assaulted before being thrown out into the street. Now, of course, New York is a big
Jesus.
city, but the attack took place just a few blocks from where Emmett's lifeless body had been dumped, so it seemed far from coincidental. As a result, newspapers went to town with headlines depicting a crazed cabbie on the loose. Then, suddenly, following a heartfelt plea from Emmett's mother on the local news, the cab driver responsible for assaulting the other woman turned himself in to police. Still, like the ex-boyfriend, he too had a rock-solid alibi for the night of February 24th, 2006. So, their hunt for a vicious killer continued. Detectives scoured the area surrounding Emmett's last known whereabouts, going into every bar and trying to gather any clues. But their big break didn't come until her credit card records came back. The last charge on Emmett's card was at the Falls. Yes, you heard me right. That's the same bar Claire had been at when she got the heartbreaking call from Alejandra. Oh, and remember the bar's not-so-nice manager, Danny Dorian? Well, it turns out police claimed he hadn't been entirely truthful when they first came to ask questions. According to investigators, Dorian was very evasive during their first visit and asserted that he had never seen Emmett before. However, with new evidence proving she was last seen alive at the Falls, he came clean. Dorian told police that Emmett had been halfway through her second drink at closing time and got angry when asked to leave, so the bouncer, Daryl Littlejohn, escorted her from the premises. The manager reported hearing the two arguing outside the bar for a short period, and then nothing. All right, now get ready for this. Dorian's twisted reason for not telling detectives that Emmett was in his bar that night had nothing to do with Emmett, but another high-profile murder. That's because his family owned Dorian's Red Hand on the Upper East Side, the spot where convicted killer Robert Chambers, aka the Preppy Killer, met 18-year-old Jennifer Levin in 1986 before strangling her to death in Central Park.
Jeez.
According to Dorian, he remembered all too well how his family was treated during that time and couldn't bear the idea of more negative publicity. The fact that yet another attractive young woman found herself at a Dorian-owned establishment and wound up dead the very same night certainly raised some eyebrows, but police had to speak with the bouncer to get the whole story. Authorities first looked into Littlejohn's background and found some disturbing information, including that he had spent more than 12 years in prison for drug possession and armed robbery charges. Additionally, he was out on parole at the time and had been violating the curfew of his agreement by working at the bar. After hours of being interviewed, Littlejohn finally started talking and admitted to accompanying Emmett out of the bar, but insisted they both went their separate ways. Fortunately, police were able to hold him on the parole violation while they searched for more evidence, and it didn't take long to uncover some seriously incriminating details. Detectives weren't surprised by the lack of eyewitnesses, given it was around 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
But in the city that never sleeps, the homeless population is always watching. So they spoke with a homeless man named Miguel Angel Cruz, who claimed to have seen Littlejohn walking a very intoxicated Emmett down the street towards a dark van.
Oh,
He heard
God.
him say, "Don't worry, I'll take you home," before putting her in the front seat and driving away. At his home, authorities found the same van described by Cruz in Littlejohn's driveway, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. Inside his basement apartment, a red carpet and several fur coats carried fibers matching those found at the crime scene.
Jeez.
Cell phone tower records provided additional evidence that the bouncer was moving from his home to a location near where the body was found. Then, just as things were really heating up, police made a bombshell announcement. The blood found on the zip ties around Emmett's wrists was a match to Daryl Littlejohn. He was subsequently charged with 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder for her death. Naturally, photos of Littlejohn and his vehicle were plastered all over the news, and right away, 2 women came forward to share their own harrowing stories.
Holy.
They both testified that he had posed as a police officer in Queens and abducted them in the same black van, confirming the detective's suspicions that Littlejohn was an incredibly dangerous individual with a
My
history
God.
of assault. After being charged with the 2 attacks in Queens, prosecutors used this evidence at his trial for the murder of Amet St. Guillen. Opening arguments began on May 11, 2009, with the defense claiming Little John was being framed to protect Danny Dorian. However, after a series of chilling testimonies and condemning evidence, the prosecution rested their case on May 28, 2009. It took the jury less than 7 hours to reach a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life without parole and will serve it consecutively alongside his previous 25-year-to-life term for kidnapping the Queens woman. It's beyond devastating to think that someone who wanted nothing more than to advocate for others became the victim of such a heinous crime.
My God.
Kebas
Oh.
dan kesemutan.
The fall
Let's see. Which one? At Kemper, Alves. I hmm. Which one should we watch? Hmm. Which one should we watch? Wilma June, Elizabeth Olsen. Let's watch this.
cases can often have surprising twists and turns, and today we are taking a look at a few cases that are particularly shocking and so strange that they may not seem real. But we promise they are all true. The first case we have today is a mix of fact and fiction, and it is a story full of bizarre twists. In 2003, on June 29th, 2 boys, 14-year-old John and 16-year-old Mark, walked together through an alleyway called Goose Green in the small town of Altrincham, England. Neither of those names are real, as both are aliases given to the boys to keep their true identities a secret.
Okay.
While passing through Goose Green, John was attacked. He was viciously stabbed once in the stomach and another time in the chest. Around 20 minutes after the incident, Mark called for an ambulance, saying that a madman had attacked his friend. Mark described the attacker as being in his early 20s and dressed in a black hoodie and black jeans. Soon people were on the lookout for a knife-wielding madman in the area. John was rushed to the Wythenshawe Hospital, where he had to have his gallbladder removed after one of the stab wounds had pierced both his kidney and liver. While being operated on, John almost died on 2 occasions. Blood built up in his chest and resulted in him requiring a respirator to breathe. But despite the odds, John survived the attack. The seemingly unprovoked stabbing shocked the public, as the area was known to be quiet and peaceful with a low crime rate, but the case would soon turn out to be even more shocking. Police quickly realized that Mark had been lying about the attacker. The area where he said the stabber ran off ended in a 40-foot drop, and after reviewing a closed-circuit camera, police never found evidence of anyone but the 2 boys entering the alleyway.
What the?
Mark was arrested for attempted murder, and after giving the police multiple different stories, John would finally admit that his friend had been the one to stab him.
My God.
John told the police, "Mark did it once, stood up, holding me, did it again. He was kneeling on me saying, 'Trust me,' holding the knife to my stomach." John says he screamed, "Call an ambulance, I'm dying," to which Mark responded, "Shush, people will hear, please be quiet."
Oh my
John
god.
says he then cried, "You've killed me." And Mark replied, "Don't say that. Don't let that be the last thing you are saying."
Oh my god.
Mark's arrest,
This serial
though surprise,
killer, this
wasn't the end
psycho.
of this case. Another arrest was made
Oh
4
my
months
God.
after the stabbing, and this time
Such a
John was
psycho,
also
bro.
arrested, charged with inciting murder.
Mm.
The murder John had planned was his own. Months prior to the attack, John had spent hours on chat forums crafting half a dozen different identities and building captivating stories around each. It was through these characters that he talked to Mark. Mark reportedly had no idea that all of the different people he spoke to through chat rooms were all actually John, using different names and emails, even changing some of the ways each fake person spoke over the chats. John had initially befriended Mark through his first fake character, named Rachel West, who claimed that the real John was her brother.
Hmm.
Through ongoing conversations, Mark developed a crush on the girl he only knew through chat rooms, and with her urging, became friends with her brother in real life. With the
Jeez.
6 chat room characters, John built a shocking world where Mark was dating Rachel, where there were kidnappers, murderers, and secret agents, and Mark was part of it all. Though the world was only discussed through chat rooms, Mark believed it and was wrapped up in a world that was part real, part fiction, all masterminded by John and his 6 characters.
Jeez.
John made sure to mention real people in Mark's life, bringing in an element of the real world to make his ruse all the more immersive and convincing. 16-year-old Mark was particularly gullible to be pulled in so easily by John's lies, but a judge commenting on the case chillingly remarked that skilled writers of fiction would struggle to conjure up a plot such as arises here. Mark endlessly communicated with John's characters, so much so that during the investigation, police had to go over 133 gigabytes of data, and 58,000 lines of text were taken in as evidence for the case, which was only a small fraction of all the messages Mark exchanged with John's 6 personas. John later shared that fooling his friend so easily was, quote, like feeding a dog.
Oh my god.
It is reported that John worked tirelessly on fueling this dark fabrication, often nurturing his made-up world from 4 p.m. to 7 in the morning, later
Jesus.
explaining, "I'd stopped eating in March, just wanted to be on the internet, that's all that mattered." It was through John's persona of a British agent named Janet Dobinson that he convinced Mark to kill him. This character told Mark that everyone around him was a possible secret agent working for the British government, and that he had been selected to possibly join their ranks. He only had to prove himself worthy. The best way to do this was to kill John. Janet told Mark the implausible and far-fetched story that John was dying from a terminal brain tumor, but that the British Secret Service needed him dead earlier because he was worth 568 billion pounds, which he kept in a huge, massive safe containing the
What?
world's richest jewels. John had to die in order to keep all of the treasure safe, and Mark was quickly convinced, though he had to be reassured by the secret agent that it wasn't murder for him to kill John. "You want me to kill him? That's what you're asking me," Mark wrote to Janet over their chat. "And just leave him to die? What should I say to him? Stand there a minute while I stab you?"
Oh my god. Shopee.
"You love him," John responded as Janet in the chat, masterminding his own death and telling his friend to be the one to do it. It didn't take much convincing beyond that, and when it came to the day of the incident, Mark said to John, "I love you, bro," just before stabbing him twice.
Oh my god.
John was an isolated and depressed teen in desperate need of attention. He felt trapped by the internet world he had created and couldn't imagine any other way to escape. Some investigators concluded that John had chosen to plan his own murder and cast Mark as his killer out of fear and a desperation to take his own life, while others see him only as downright wicked and evil for manipulating another person so successfully. It is also believed that John targeted Mark for his deception because he was attracted to him and believed that he was out of his league. Initially, John had used the fake person Rachel as a way to talk to Mark, but everything spiraled out of control from there. Though the case itself is so strange it doesn't seem real, there is one more bizarre aspect. Over the chats, Mark had seemed convinced by the supposed secret agent Janet that he would be released for killing John. Yet when he was brought in for the crime, he never once asked for her, nor told anyone about the government conspiracy that had convinced him to kill his friend, even though he should have believed it would free him. Instead, when he confessed to the stabbing, he told police that he heard voices telling him to do it, leaving many to wonder just how much of the fantasy that John created did Mark actually believe.
Ugh.
Even John thinks that Mark knew the characters weren't real. This conclusion brings some credence to the theory that both wanted to end the lies between them, and Mark was willing to kill John to make it stop. Both boys pleaded guilty to their charges, and John is likely one of the first people in the world to be convicted of inciting their own murder. This next case is no less dramatic than the Goose Green stabbing, but has even more dire consequences. Living in Fayetteville, North Carolina in 1985, the Eastburns were a military family. Captain Gary Eastburn was part of the Air Force and had moved his family to Pope Air Force Base so that he could work as the chief of air traffic control. Gary's wife, Katie, was more than happy to move where her husband needed to go and happily brought along the couple's 3 children, 5-year-old Kara, 3-year-old Aaron, and 22-month-old Jana. In May 1985, the family decided they needed a change and that they would relocate to England so that Gary could work as a liaison with the Royal Air Force. Gary was away in Montgomery, Alabama for training at a squadron's officer school during much of the packing and planning for the move, and so Katie took over most of the responsibilities. She realized that the family wouldn't be able to take their English setter Dixie with them for the trip, so she posted an ad in the local paper for someone to come take Dixie. On May 7th, 27-year-old Army Sergeant Timothy Hennis called about the ad and came to visit the Eastburn house to see Dixie. Timothy said that he and his wife owned a Spitz and that with their newborn daughter, it was the perfect time to add another dog to his family. And so he took Dixie with him. On May 11th, Gary became concerned when Katie didn't answer any of his calls, but concluded that she must have been busy with the move and their kids. However, the Eastburns' neighbor was also worried and soon called the police when he hadn't seen the family in a while. Police found Katie's body inside the house next to the bed, along with those of her 2 oldest children. Death has a smell, its own aroma. I'll never forget the smell in there, one detective later said. Katie had been assaulted, stabbed 15
Holy
times,
shit.
and her throat cut, while Kara was also stabbed, and Aaron bludgeoned in the chest and back. Jana was left unscathed by the attacker, but was severely dehydrated by the time she was found. It was determined that Katie and her daughters had been killed the night of May 9th and early morning of May 10th. Investigators found evidence of both fingerprints and hair, and this, along with the luminol test, revealed that the killer had poorly attempted to clean the crime scene. Devastated by the loss, Gary returned to his home in an effort to aid investigators. He determined that cash and Katie's ATM card had been stolen, along with a slip of paper where she had written her PIN number. Witnesses came forward to say that they had seen someone enter the Eastburn house the night Katie and her daughters were killed. The person was described as being a tall white man, wearing a knit cap and a black jacket that had "Members Only" written on the back. He was seen driving from the house in a white Chevrolet. Katie's bank card was also used after her death to withdraw cash, and witnesses saw a man who matched the same description in the area where the money was taken out. Timothy Hennis was quickly identified as the prime suspect in the murder, as he fit witness descriptions, and one witness even picked him out of a lineup. Timothy said he had no contact with Katie beyond picking up the dog, and claimed that he was at his in-laws the night of the murder, except for a short period when he stopped to refuel his car while returning home. Despite this, he was interviewed and asked to give saliva, hair, and fingerprint samples. Timothy's alibi fell apart when his former girlfriend came forward and said that he had visited her house that night, and evidence was found that he brought his members-only jacket to the dry cleaners on May 10th. He was also seen burning things in a bin by his neighbors. Timothy was arrested and charged with all 3 deaths.
Oh my god.
During his trial, Timothy was offered a plea deal, which he turned down. He was then found guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death.
Huh.
While waiting on death row, Timothy received an unsigned letter saying, "Dear Mr. Hennis, I did the crime. I murdered the Eastburns. Sorry you're doing the time. I'll be safely out of North Carolina when you read this." The same letter was also sent to the local sheriff's office. Based on the new evidence, Timothy appealed his sentence, which he was granted in 1988, marking the first time someone on death row in North Carolina had been granted a retrial. Timothy's lawyers argued that because police used graphic photos of the crime scene as part of his interrogation, The images had undue influence on him and swayed anything he said while being questioned. The new trial tore into the witnesses who claimed to have seen Timothy on the night of the murders. For one witness, his testimony was brought into question because he had described the weather as fair that night, when in fact it had been overcast. As well, another witness was challenged as she had originally said she didn't see Timothy near the bank when Katie's card was used, but altered her statement right before the trial. The only evidence seen to prove Timothy's guilt was his members-only jacket, but the defense proved that it had been tested and no traces of blood were ever found. In a shocking twist, Timothy went from waiting to be executed for the horrific crimes to being found not guilty of any of the charges. After the trial, Gary Eastburn took his only surviving daughter to England with him, where he eventually remarried. After his not guilty verdict, Timothy Hennis ended up re-enlisting in the Army and even was promoted to Staff Sergeant. He served in both Iraq and Somalia and was even part of Operation Desert Storm. When he retired from the Army, Timothy was a Master Sergeant. But the twists of this case do not end here. In 2005, Captain Larry Trotter was at a detective seminar which used the Eastburn murders as a case study to discuss the importance of credible evidence, as it was still unsolved. While there, Trotter learned that DNA had been collected from a semen sample at the crime scene, but never tested because DNA technology was unreliable in the late 80s. Trotter decided to have the DNA tested, and in 2006, it was shockingly determined that it was undoubtedly from Timothy Hennis. Though Trotter appeared to have finally solved a decades-old case, there was one glaring problem: double jeopardy. The Fifth Amendment's double jeopardy clause states that because Timothy had been acquitted of the murders, he could not be retried for the same crime. It appeared that Timothy was going to get away with a triple homicide, and there was nothing the police could do about it. However, in the next twist of this case, the Army decided to take things into their own hands. In September of 2006, Timothy was recalled back into military duty and moved to Fort Bragg. There he was court-martialed, as the Uniform Code of Military Justice allows for members of the military who have previously been tried in civilian court to still be court-martialed. It was the only way around the clause of double jeopardy to have Timothy tried for his crimes. Timothy attempted to appeal, as he believed that the Army didn't have the jurisdiction, but was denied. In fact, he attempted to appeal on 2 other occasions. At his court-martial trial in 2010, the DNA evidence was finally given, along with the previous witness statements. Though Timothy's defense tried to claim that any relationship that had resulted in his DNA being found on Katie's body had been the result of consent, he was found unanimously guilty. One detective would later emphasize, Tim Hennis is not a dumb man, and the fact that the man's score on an Army General Aptitude test had placed him in the 97th percentile shows that he was indeed clever, almost clever enough to get away with murder. The same detective also recalled Timothy's biting sense of humor, explaining that after being charged with the crime, the man sneered at him. Looks like I'm going to get to wear one of those little orange jumpsuits. Detective Robert Biddle described his take on Timothy's sinister motivations, saying, "Why do people rob banks? They think that others didn't know how to do it right. That was Tim Hennis's attitude. You can't get me, I'm smarter than you are." From 2010 to 2020, Timothy has attempted multiple appeals and calls for a second trial, all of which have been dismissed. He is once again on death row. The last case we have for you today may be the most shocking of them all. Carl Brandt was born in 1957 as the second child of 2 German immigrants living in Connecticut. Going by the nickname Charlie rather than Carl, his upbringing was typical and normal, though he was known to be shy. His family expanded to include 2 younger sisters and seemed to be utterly unextraordinary until Charlie was 13. During the night of January 3rd, 1971, Charlie retrieved his father's handgun from the drawer where everyone knew it was kept and proceeded to find his parents, where they were both in the bathroom. His father was shaving, while his mother, who was 8 months pregnant with Charlie's newest sibling, was taking a bath. Charlie shot both of his parents, instantly killing his mother and her unborn baby, and severely wounding his father. Charlie then sought out his older sister Angela, who he found in her bedroom. Though he attempted to shoot her too, the gun didn't fire because he had run out of bullets. Angela managed to fight Charlie off and ran outside, seeking help from the neighbors and to keep Charlie away from their 2 younger sisters who he hadn't harmed yet. Charlie chased after her, But when he came to the neighbor's house, he simply told them, "I just shot my mom and dad."
Oh my god.
When the police arrived, Angela described that her brother looked like he had been in a trance when he came into her room. It was determined that Charlie had been triggered to attempt to kill his entire family by a few factors, including pressure in school and the fact that days earlier his father had shot and killed their family dog in front of him while they were out
Oh my
hunting.
god.
Though psychiatrists believed that mental illness also had to be a factor, they found no evidence of it in Charlie. Because he was only 13, Indiana law deemed he was too young to be tried for murder, and so after a brief
This person is 13? What? He's 13 years old. You tell me. With this photo, he's 13 years old.
1 year at a psychiatric hospital, Charlie went back to his family, returned free to society. His younger sisters were never told that their brother had killed their mom, instead believing that she had died in a car accident, and no one spoke of what happened. To all, it appeared that Charlie's murderous incident had been a one-off, and he went on to have a normal life, even earning a degree in electronics in 1984. He landed himself a job at Ford Aerospace as a radar specialist and got married to Terry Helfrich in 1986. Allegedly, his sister Angela told him to tell Terry about the murder of their mother, but no one knows if he did or not. Some people suspect that Terry knew about what Charlie had done, but decided to ignore this troubling piece of his past. The couple moved to Pine Key, Florida, and appeared happy and in love, if almost inseparable. Charlie was described by all who knew him as a nice, easygoing, and quiet guy, and none would have guessed at his dark past as a child. But in September of 2004, the couple were forced to evacuate as Hurricane Ivan swept into the area. This proved to be a catalyst for the couple's downward spiral. Luckily, their niece, Michelle Jones, had a house near Orlando and offered them a place to stay with her to wait out the storm. Michelle had invited some friends to come over on September 13th, but she canceled after she and Charlie and Terry got into an alcohol-induced argument. For a few days after this phone call, no one could get in contact with Michelle, and her friends and mother began to worry. One of her close friends, Debbie Knight, decided to go and check up on Michelle herself on the 15th, and what she discovered was utterly shocking. The house was locked, and so to get inside, Debbie broke into the garage. Inside, she found Charlie's body.
Huh?
The body was decomposing and hanging from the rafters, where it appeared that he had taken his own life. Debbie didn't go any further and immediately called the police. Inside, police found Terry's body on the couch, stabbed 7 times. Michelle had been decapitated, with her head placed carefully next to her body, and her heart and organs removed.
Oh my god.
There were no signs of an intruder. Police determined that it had once again been Charlie who murdered those around him. But this isn't the main twist of the case. After more investigation, the police uncovered that Charlie had a large collection of books, posters, and news clippings about surgery. Plus, his internet history showed that he frequently looked up videos of autopsies. But it was the practiced nature with which Michelle's body had been attacked and arranged that really alerted the police's attention. Evidence led police to believe that Charlie had experienced killing people more than he could have learned through just shooting his parents and through his obsession with
Ratu
autopsies.
Elizabeth baru saja
started looking
memberikan
into
10.000. 2-3 buah pepaya. Saya kaget mendengarnya. Kiki
Places
have
in
a
the
good
area of
day.
Florida where he lived. But as
Thank
Charlie
you,
traveled
Ratu
frequently
Elizabeth,
his
for the
job,
10K.
They expanded the search to include all of Florida and the broader U.S. Police looked for any cases that seemed to fit the particular way that Charlie had arranged Michelle's body. Through the investigation, Charlie was first connected to the death of Sherry Perishow.
Damn.
Sherry had been killed about 1,000 feet from his and Terry's home in 1989. Her heart had been removed, which became part of
Jesus.
Charlie's M.O. and helped to connect him to the case. Allegedly, Terry had seen blood on Charlie on the night that Sherry died, and she had turned to her then brother-in-law to say that she suspected something was amiss.
Oh
Yet
my
nothing ever
god.
came of her comments at the time. Charlie was then also found to be guilty of killing Darlene Toller in 1995, whose body was missing both her heart and her head.
Jesus.
Her body had been found along a highway that Charlie used frequently. Both Sherry and Darlene's manner of deaths were described as surgical. But the case took another startling twist when Charlie's double life was exposed. he was connected to another 24 unsolved murders in Florida, some from as far back
24. This person has been doing killing and stabbing and decapitating, bro.
as 1973,
And got married.
which is the year
Oh
he
my
moved to the
God.
state. This year also means that Charlie started his career as a prolific serial killer at only 16. Though he
Jeez.
hasn't been definitively found guilty of all 24 deaths, police believe that he is likely the culprit. It hasn't been ruled out that Charlie may have committed even more murders in Florida, as well as possibly in other areas where he lived previously. His case, along with the other cases we have discussed today, goes to show that you can't truly know a person,
I wanna
and that
watch
the people
this.
around you could be harboring dark secrets.
Oh my
Staycation jadi
God.
cocok karena
Not
banyak
Traveloka.
pilihan yang cocok di Traveloka. Beragam hotel
Mm.
What is up, Iwu crew? Today
Iwu.
we are taking a look at 3 more cases that have unexpected or shocking twists. Some of these stories are so bizarre, you just might not believe they are real, but they are all true. Let's get into it. In today's first case, the world of fantasy on the internet
Thomas
collided dramatically
Montgomery.
with reality. It is the case of a tragic love triangle and the links that people will go to for attention and revenge. In May 2005, 46-year-old Thomas Montgomery, a married father with 2 children, found a fantasy escape within the chat room of the popular gaming site Pogo.
Pogo.
Though the site was aimed for the use of teenagers, it was perfect for Thomas. Exploiting the anonymity of the internet, he created a profile with the name Marine Sniper, where he pretended to be a young Iraq-bound Marine. Thomas chose the handle as a callback to the 6 years he had served in the military when he was younger.
Mm.
Though his name suggested he was a sniper during that time, he never actually trained as one, furthering the fantasy element of his online profile.
Sorry. Be right back. Sorry. Oh, my father called me. Okay. Continue.
At first, the chat room was a place of escapism for Thomas, a place for him to feel young and robust. But soon, one of the players on the site, by the handle of Tall Hot Blonde, caught his attention.
All hot
The two started
blonde.
chatting, and Tall Hot
Jesus.
Blonde told him that her real name was Jessie, and that she was 18.
Don't tell me
Jessie told
he
him she was
believes
from
that.
West Virginia, and that she was a senior in high school who played softball. Thomas responded by telling her that he went by Tommy, and that he was also 18. Believing that they would never meet in real life, he saw no harm in the lie. The two began to flirt over the chat, which after some time escalated into a full-blown internet romance. As their online courtship progressed, Jessie began to send Thomas photos of herself, which became progressively more provocative. Thomas returned with photos of himself from 30 years earlier, ones where he was almost unrecognizable to how he looked now. The relationship soon went beyond the chat room, and the two started to talk on the phone, trading love letters and gifts. And all the while, Thomas knew that he was lying to Jessie, but the relationship had become completely consuming for Thomas, which he later described as more real to me than real life. It was like a drug that
Oh
I
my
needed every day.
God,
Over the
Thomas.
chat, Jessie wrote, "I love you always and forever, Tommy," with Thomas responding, "I've never felt this way." But the fantasy world of the internet can only stay separate from the real world for so long. Sometime in March 2006, one of Thomas's daughters used his computer just when Jessie messaged him. Startled by what she read, she immediately told her mother, Cindy, who then went through Thomas's computer and found all of the pair's messages, love letters, photos,
God.
and even a pair of red underwear that Jessie had sent Thomas. Enraged and hurt by the lies and deceit of her husband, Cindy took matters into her own hands and messaged Jessie back. She sent a photo of their family and wrote, "Let me introduce you to these people. The man in the center is Tom, my husband since 1989. He is 46 years old. Do not trust words on a computer. Let this go. You will only be hurt by a man who had mastered the art of manipulation and lies." Jessie responded with horror, texting Thomas and telling him that she hated him and that he should be put in jail for what he had done. But the saga didn't end there. Dealing with her own heartbreak, Jessie went through denial, and she ended up tracking down one of Thomas's co-workers, 22-year-old college student and part-time machinist Brian Barrett. Over a chat room where Brian used the username Beefcake,
Beefcake.
Jessie
These names: Marine Sniper, Tall Hot Blonde, Beefcake. Oh my god, this is such a elderly people names. You know what I'm saying?
asked him if what Thomas's wife had told her was true.
Tall Hot Blonde.
It
Yeah,
wasn't long
right.
before Jessie and Brian started an affair of their own, sparking enormous jealousy in Thomas, who watched their flirting over the chat room and heard about it from coworkers in real life. As he grew angrier about Jessie's new love, Thomas messaged her saying that Brian will pay in blood, and calling her a variety of offensive names. To retaliate, both Jessie and Brian told everyone on the forums his true age. Yet during all of this, Jessie appeared torn between her first romance and her new relationship with Brian. Frequently, she would message Thomas to tell him that she missed him and that she wished they could be together. Now that Jessie knew about his family and his real age, Thomas felt like he had hit the jackpot and that an attractive young girl liked him for who he really was. Even though the two seemed to rekindle their romance, Jessie once again called it off. After some time, she began talking to Brian again, and this time Thomas's jealousy at Jessie's betrayal turned into something even darker. With Thomas out of the picture, Brian and Jessie's romance flourished, and the two decided to meet in person for the first time. Brian planned to drive to West Virginia, but Jessie texted him at the last moment to cancel. Somehow, Thomas learned about the couple's plan, and his rage at the rejection drove him mad. Just as Brian was leaving work on September 15, 2006, Thomas sought his revenge against the man he believed had stolen his love from him. Brian was found dead in the parking lot where both men worked, with 3 bullet wounds from a military rifle.
Holy.
During the ensuing investigation, Thomas and Brian's co-workers told police about the internet love triangle. The police worried that if Thomas was capable of killing Brian, that he might also hurt Jessie. But when they tracked her down to see if she was all right, they discovered a shocking secret. When police arrived at Jessie's address,
Jessie is a
woman
man.
named Mary Schuyler opened the door. Under the pressure of police questioning, 45-year-old Mary revealed a tangled web of deception and lies. She was Jessie. Mary had been catfished.
Duh. Oh my god, these people, bro. You believe that person named Tall Hot Blonde is a real person named Jessie, a 19 years old. Oh my god.
both Brian and Thomas, just as Thomas had done with her. The photos she used to create her fake online profile were of Mary's own real daughter, Jessie. The real Jessie had no idea that her mother had taken the pictures of her. Never
That's fucked
mind
up.
was using them to talk to men online.
That's fucked up.
Though Mary had never intended that Thomas would kill Brian over her online romances, she had played with both men's feelings, knowing that she was lying the entire time. What's more, it is reported that Mary had a husband of her own,
Duh.
who divorced her shortly after she confessed her secret plot to the police. Thomas was initially charged with second-degree murder. He pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of first-degree manslaughter and received a 20-year sentence. Prosecutors attempted to charge Mary with something for her role in the tragic and deadly love triangle, as many believed she had provoked Thomas into his jealous rage, all for a fake online relationship. But she hadn't technically done anything illegal, and so she was never charged.
Catfishing is not illegal? Like, isn't that charged as fraud? Is fraud? No, stealing someone's identity. It's not illegal. I mean, she's using her own daughter and her own daughter's profile. Isn't that stealing identity?
Mary has only spoken publicly once about what she had done, saying, "I just never thought it would go anywhere, that it would end, fall off, and that would be the end of it." Reportedly, Mary never apologized for her actions, not even to her daughter, who has since cut off contact with her. This shocking
Good
story
for her
was depicted
daughter,
in a
dude.
documentary in 2009 and in the 2012 film Tall Hot Blonde.
Hmm.
In 2007, Ron Williamson met 83-year-old retired Air Force General Jack Rains while at a flea market in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Jack had retired from the U.S. Air Force after 32 years of service, after which he worked as the Woodbury's police chief and as a state trooper. Though he lived with his wife at a nursing home, Jack became friendly with the entire Williamson family. For over 4 years, he was frequently invited to their family gatherings during holidays, spent time with Ron's children, and went to cookouts at their house. Ron's wife, 39-year-old Tina, especially hit it off with Jack, and the two became instant friends. Tina and Jack eventually went into business together, where they bought and sold used cars. Because of their work together, the two opened a joint checking account. Jack and Tina spent large amounts of time together and grew incredibly close. On August 31st, Tina was picked up at her home by Jack, and the two went for breakfast together and ran some errands before he once again dropped her off. The next day, on September 1st, Ron and Tina went to visit Jack at his home. As soon as they arrived, they realized something was off. They had a key to the house and let themselves in. Inside, they found Jack dead, sitting at his kitchen table in his underwear and undershirt. Ron reported the murder to the police, telling them that it looked like there had been a robbery. It was uncovered that Jack had likely died the day before he was found, on August 31st. Jack had been shot multiple times, including 5 gunshot wounds directly to the back of his head.
Oh my god.
Investigators soon realized that the crime scene had been staged to resemble a robbery, but there was no evidence of a forced entry, and many valuable items were still in the house. Police soon had a suspect in mind for the gruesome and shocking murder,
Oh my god.
Tina. She was arrested on December 4th. The police were alerted to her as a suspect because of her strange behavior after Jack's death, especially considering how close the two of them had been. Tina was arrested on the basis that she owned a gun that matched the bullets used to kill Jack, but there was no physical evidence such as fingerprints to tie Tina to the crime scene. However, just before her arrest, a witness came forward with evidence of their own. Betty Olson, Tina's close friend, had been contacted by detectives when they saw that she had been called by Tina following the time that Jack had died. She told detectives that on August 31st, she picked Tina up a block away from where Jack lived. The investigators had Olson contact Tina so that they could secretly record their interactions. In the recordings, Tina told Olson not to tell the police about giving her a ride, and that she was worried about her location being pinpointed by her cell phone. Tina also revealed that she was glad that the detectives who spoke to her hadn't discovered the $4,600 cash that she had in her purse at the time. Tina also told Olson that if she had killed someone, Tina would cover for her. These recordings and Olson's eyewitness testimony were used to paint a picture of Tina as a heartless murderer during her trial, but her defense claimed that she had no motive to kill Jack. Evidence soon arose that on the day that he died, Jack took out $489 from their shared account, and then, later the same day, Tina took out $1,500 before she deposited $1,900 in her own bank account. Not only that, but Jack also had left Tina $100,000, which she cashed out only a week after he died. One bank employee said that they had observed Tina shaking uncontrollably. Tina later stated that the money he left her wasn't for her to go and spend, but to be set aside in case he wasn't able to care for himself because he was in his 80s. Tina claimed that Jack intended her to be the one to ensure he was cared for, though he had a living wife and son at the time of his death. After searching Tina and Ron's house, many of Jack's possessions were discovered, including his military records, his blank checks, and the title to his car in the joint checkbook he shared with Tina, which had a spot of blood on it. However, it was during the trial that a shocking twist was asserted. The prosecution alleged that Tina and Jack's relationship went beyond their business together, and that the two had become romantically involved,
It
despite
has
the
me.
45-year age difference between them. Addressing the claim, Tina said, "I loved him as anyone would their grandpa. He was part of our family." Tina continually denied ever having an affair with Jack, but DNA evidence seemed to prove otherwise. Jack's underwear contained traces of Tina's DNA, which implied that their relationship was much more intimate than she ever admitted. Furthermore, a witness, Jerry Kirby, came forward and said that he had seen Tina hug and kiss Jack on the mouth, He said, "I thought it was awfully funny, an older man like that." Another witness, Jack Simon, said that Jack called Tina his girlfriend. Tina claims that she is innocent, that she was never in a relationship with Jack. Despite this, in December of 2007, Tina was convicted by a jury for second-degree murder, felony murder, a murder committed during another crime, and aggravated robbery. As the judge read her sentence, which was life plus 20 years, totaling a whopping 71 years in prison, Tina
Oh my
reportedly
God.
collapsed and hit her head against the floor of the courtroom. In the year 2065, Tina will be able to seek parole, making her 96 years old at the time she could be released.
Jeez.
Our next case for you is about Police Lieutenant Charles Joseph Glenowitz.
Okay, guys, I have to pause. I have to go for doing the little things because my father needs something. Okay, I'll continue to stream after I went somewhere. Okay, maybe I'll cut some of this and then yeah, I'll I will back. Okay, I'm so sorry. It's very, very urgent. I'm so sorry, okay? I'll continue after this, okay? See you guys. Bye.